first in the final series of 3 seminars for CAPER's seminar series this year. We've been doing them in thematic blocks. And so the theme for the next 3 seminars will be about Indigenous governance of development, and the seminars and the presenters are all linked into a large project that CAPER is doing collaboratively with the Australian Indigenous Governance Institute, who is our major funder and partner in this project that we're doing with several First Nations groups and organisations across Australia. So all of our presenters, in one way or another, are collaborating with us on this research project, and it's very much an applied research project. The aim is to make the research count out on the ground with organisations and groups who are working to rebuild or strengthen their governance, and in particular governance over development initiatives and opportunities. So just having put that context in for the next series of our seminars, to welcome you all and to pay our acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the lands on which we're all zooming in from. I'm sitting and working on Gumbaynggirr country at the moment, which is a glorious place to be living and working, and I'd just like to acknowledge the custodians of the lands on which I'm living and doing my CAPER research work at the moment. And the same for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander custodians of the lands on which you're all linked into, and that who we're working with in CAPER and the Governance Institute in terms of doing this project. So welcome everybody, and thank you for linking in. And it's great pleasure to introduce the somewhat flustered Felicity Thiessen, but flustered only through my fault entirely, because she did totally the right thing and checked out with me the time difference between Brisbane and Canberra, and I, kind of professionally got back to her very immediately and gave her totally the wrong steer. So she thought she had another hour to go before she had to figure out all the technology of sharing screens. So apology, Felicity. But it gives me great pleasure to introduce Felicity Thiessen, who commenced working with Queensland South Native Title Services, who is a partner along with the Bunthamara Nation of Southern Queensland in this project with us. So Felicity has been working as a lawyer from 2017 in QSNTS, and then was appointed the Chief Operating Officer, and is very much involved on the ground, working with Aboriginal people in Queensland in terms of their native title determinations and claims. Felicity studied law, but also completed an arts degree at the University of Queensland, our old alma mater, with a double major in anthropology. So she comes to this presentation today with both research, law and native title practice expertise, which is a fantastic combination, I think, in terms of the kinds of issues that we like to talk about in CAPER, which is where the rubber hits the road in terms of applying research. And Felicity, as well as that, has also held a number of positions in Commonwealth entities, including the Federal Court and the National Native Title Tribunal. So I'd like to welcome Felicity, and she's going to be talking to us today about people, place and partnership as a model for leveraging and governing native title. And just by way of welcome as well, those people from QSNTS, Bunthamara and the Governance Institute who might be linking in listening to us today. So welcome, Felicity.
Thanks very much, Di. And I just do have to apologise a little bit. There may be a bit of scrambling because, as is my want, my last minute reorganising of the slides, it may be a little bit askew, but here we go. I would also like to acknowledge and pay respects to the traditional owners on all of the lands in which we meet today, wherever you may be. I'm in Mianjin, the Yugara language name for Brisbane, and I acknowledge the traditional custodians of these lands and waters. So I'll start now. I mean, I'm starting with a brief description of QSNTS, and just to give some context to, I guess, our service region, which is 2/3 of Queensland. It's a vast region where there are many different Aboriginal groups with different country and opportunities on those countries. So just to depict the sheer size of our service region, which sometimes we can feel quite overwhelmed with. The current map on your screen is showing in orange the determined areas, and the purple is the current claim areas. And as you'll see, there's quite a vast area of blue, which means that there's either been a negative determination area, or they are areas that are not, there's not yet a claim, or the claims are represented by external service providers. And unfortunately, in some of the vast regions, such as this central western area here of Queensland, there's been determinations by the court. While no negative determination, the findings were that the society that was described in the applications no longer existed. So to pursue any claims in that area, as they were described in those applications at the time, which was the vast Bidjara claims, would be not allowed by the court, in effect. So QSNTS has been around since 2005, and Kevin Smith, who I'm sure many of you will know, has been the CEO of QSNTS since 2008 and continues to be. And just going back, at one point in time, our service region was just southwest Queensland, or southeast Queensland really, and then we expanded our service region to take over what was when the Garang Land Council no longer existed, and to the west in and around Mount Isa for that region of Carpentaria Land Council. So that in that picture we have 36 determinations in our region, 23 of which we did provide assistance to. There are currently 26 PBCs, and we provide services to 9. And some of the differences in numbers will become clear. We also have about 27 native title applications on foot in the region, with us representing 20 of those, and we have 9 on the path to consent determination in the next 18 months or so, two in the next couple of months. So the recognition phase, and I will get to the PPP, but this is all context for its development. As you know, so many of the claims in QSNTS's region have been around in various iterations since the late 80s, early noughties. But the first successful determination in our area was in 2011 with the Quandamooka Manjeraba claim. Since that time, we've provided representation to a number of successful determinations, as I said, a further 22, and most of which have been finalised by consent, thankfully. We've just had one positive litigated outcome. And yeah, so our intent is to settle native title by consent where we can. So between that intervening period of 2005 to relatively recently, the QSNTS's focus has been on the prosecution of native title claims. It's been, that's what we're funded to do, and that's what we're recognised as providing under the Act, is to provide facilitation assistance to prosecute native title claims. So it's been, I guess, our pure focus. Our organisational structure in prosecuting those claims was a very legalistic, siloed organisation where we in fact didn't even have the same lawyers providing representation to two clients. We'd have a litigation lawyer and we'd have a Future Act lawyer, and they were quite separate. And the client was dealing with a researcher here and there, and a community relations officer has always been at the forefront of our client relations. But there was never, I guess, an holistic approach to how we work with clients. And that was I suppose, okay. Benefit of hindsight was we were here to prosecute claims. And as a result, when matters became finalised through determination, often the PBCs would be off and wanting to do things on their own, which is also understandable. You know, it's an act of self-determination. But in recent years, we have had clients coming back to us, PBCs, and saying, but, you know, what now? You know, we got a determination. What does it mean? And even not necessarily understanding what native title rights and interests meant just the fact that there was a determination. And in QSNTS's case, as is the case of other regions, the rights and interests that have been recognised are non-exclusive. So what that means, and I'm sure you're all aware, is that, you know, there's other interests who have rights and interests on traditional owner country. Importantly, as is the case in exclusive right, there's no right of controlling access and the use of the land. So the catalyst for the development of QSNTS's People Place Partnership model was when, in 2019, a group that had stayed with us for their claims and post-determination journey, the Bunthimara people, came to us and said, well, you know, we developed this great plan, strategic plan back in 2017. Our native title rights and interests were recognised in 2015. But what does it all mean? Like, what are the sustainable benefits that we can, you know, we can benefit from our native title rights and interests? I'll just add that with the strategic planning that was undertaken with the PBCs was also undertaken by external parties. It was not something that QSNTS involved themselves in at the time. Again, funded to do claims, litigate, provide legal representation for future acts, and that was really it. So the Bunthimara developed a great strategic plan, basically with the stated purpose of leveraging native title to protect and manage country, to build strong governance and to transmit knowledge for future generations. But there were no means to implement the plan. Really what the PBC in that instance and in many instances was really just surviving, meeting the bare minimum requirements to comply with the CATSI Act. And that the PBC funding regime mandates that the PBCs could not really do anything other than mere compliance. And this is particularly so when there's a limited income streams, and that really depends upon who's doing what on country. So there was nothing to do other than hold AGM meetings and a couple of directors' meetings annually. That was the sum of governance development, and the sum was zero for implementation of native title rights and interest, by and large. And I just point out that I'll come back to that. So the Bunthimara country is Channel country out west. The only town within the determination is a town called Eromanga. It's a population of 45. It's purportedly the furthest town in Australia from the sea. Bunthimara people, through acts of the state, have been forcibly removed from the country, and in contemporary times, the practicalities around needing access to education and employment mean that people haven't been really able to move back on country, and that may not be the end goal. But what's been fundamentally important about all of our learnings is to meet the strategic objectives that I talked to you about before. People need to get back on country. How you get a group of 200 to 300 people, and that's not always the case, the groups are differential. I mean, in this case, the whole group is about 50 to 60 people. How do you get people back onto country to build those relationships with stakeholders, to reconnect with country, to manage country when you've got a budget of 80 grand a year? It's impractical. So yes, so the catalyst was Gunther coming to QSNTS and asking, you know, we really want to actually start moving on our strategic objectives. What can we do? And through a coordinated approach, we applied on behalf of Gunther for a grant through the Indigenous Advancement Strategy, so that there could be a plan for the commencement of the implementation of their strategic plan. And that project at that time was called the Gunther Mapping Resources to Manage Country project. The grant was successful. The application for a grant was successful and consisted mainly of these 3 activities that aligned with bringing all together these kind of disparate strategic objectives into 3 activities. So cultural mapping, and in that sense, that was cultural mapping that was done, mapping of sites, mapping of people on and off country, mapping of stakeholders, whether it be mining, pastoralists, local government, and also mapping traditional owner neighbours around the Gunther determination. Then the skills audit was undertaken, mapping the skills and experiences and aspirations of the Gunther people. And then a series of stakeholder engagement plans were developed by each stakeholder group, and with an order of priority identified by the Gunther people themselves. And I'll just add that this project was undertaken. Gunther and QSNTS were project partners in this project, where we provided the support, but it was very much directed by the Gunther board. So the aim of these activities, these interconnected activities, was to facilitate Gunther communicating with stakeholders and people on country, to stimulate opportunities to manage country. Part of the grant was, because it was an NIAA grant under the IAS, was really focused on employment, but and I'll come to those reasons, that a PBC doesn't become an economic powerhouse upon determination, and a lot of effort needs to go into building or rebuilding governance before you can think about engaging in widespread business opportunities. I'll just say that, so the funding was provided under the IAS, and the IAS states, and I'll read this, that the IAS represents a new way of engaging with Indigenous people and communities to implement solutions that will sustainably improve outcomes. Very narrow sense, I think that from the Commonwealth perspective, at that stage, they were thinking employment and other opportunities. To get to the development of these products, which at one, we did have a summit of Gunther people, which by virtue of the cost and the grant amount could only take place, it couldn't take place on country. But we were able to bring everyone or most of the Gunther people. It was the biggest meeting of Gunther people together since their determination. So that's a 5-year period. I mean, you know, if you're trying to build governance and your community governance in particular people need to be able to meet and see each other. So what we then, after the summit, we thought, well, okay, well, we've really only got to, we've got the products, we've got the plans, but to implement them, we will need some more funding, you know, again, as I said, to bring together historically displaced people, to develop place-based relationships, you need a decent amount of funding. So that led, well, in fact, and that we were then going to pursue what we said was the second phase of the Wunthmurra project, and then COVID intervened. So what COVID did allow, I guess, QSNTS to do was, when we were either working from home and not able to go into the field, we were able to really reflect on the first phase of the project, you know, our role in it, what we could have done better, what would have worked better, what worked well. And we thought, well, you know, taking aside the Wunthmurra people, this sort of project has applicability across our region potentially. And our strategic purpose is walking with traditional owners through every step of their native title journey. And that support shouldn't end upon determination. And where the support is requested, we need to be able to provide it. You know, we talked about the legal phase, and I'm going to be quite organisational specific at the moment, and then I'll come back to the broader model. You know, I spoke about QSNTS being staffs in silos, with very legalistic in its focus, which a native title is a legal process, so that's fine in its recognition phase, but it becomes broader, and it requires a broader set of skills to work with TOs in the implementation phase. You know, and you know, certainly in QSNTS, and I'm sure in many rep bodies, lawyers led the charge, and researchers were pulled in when they needed them, and community officers were often not involved in the legal process. So, you know, there was what Wunthmurra taught us, because we had a team of researchers, lawyers, community relations officers, members of the executive, really working together to try and deliver the best outcomes for the project. So what it led really internally to do, well, you know, if this model has a broader application, how can we work internally to ensure that we can replicate that multi-skilled team working with clients? So what that led to us was a restructure, and there's members of our board online, I believe. So we broke down those silos, and this didn't happen overnight, obviously. We slowly chipped away at those silos, and we implemented client management teams. And for each client matter that we have an allocated client management team, which is comprised with a fixed team of lawyers, researchers, paralegals, community relations officers, or, you know, one of those across each team. And then when the need be, we can call in expertise from human resources. For example, if a PBC wants to assistance to write a job description for an office staff member, or from finance if you know, there's some MyOb training to be done. So we really chipped away at that structure, and I feel that, you know, we've been very successful. It's really come to be embedded, particularly in the last month or so, where those groups are working really tightly to allocated matters. They know the group, they work together, they develop client strategies together. And everybody is valued within the team for their particular knowledge of the client and their particular contributions. So really what it is it's a holistic service delivery model. and which we call whole of client by whole of organisation, which is a bit of a mouthful, but we just say WOCWU. So that's our whole of client by whole of organisation. So as we're thinking about how we as a service provider can better provide services along the native title journey, pre and post determination, we also started to develop the people place partnership model. Now this is maybe where some of my slides may be a bit out of turn, so apologies in advance. So the PPP is a framework for working with traditional owners, but also predetermination, which I'll come to, in basically to support nation building. It's strength-based. We're not focusing on the deficit models. It doesn't matter if you don't have, there are ways to work with groups without a great source of income. And even if you do, that's not helpful to groups unless you have governance, strong governance as a basis. So I think I've got the slides a little bit out, so apologies. But so this came out of the Wunthimara project, people place partnership, people, the skills audit, harnessing human capital, place, cultural mapping of your country, and partnership, how you work with stakeholders to develop opportunities and to get back on country, to be engaged at a community level. So, as I said, it's a rights focus. Fundamentally, traditional owners have native title rights and interests recognised in law, and importantly, they're recognised in REM, which means forever. So that's a fairly powerful basis from which to start, even where they may not be exclusive. They are your native title rights and interests forever. It's working with your stakeholders and other community groups to develop opportunities, to build your internal community governance, which is fundamental. And you know that there's some of those comments that have come out since Duke and Gorge talk about that, the importance of transparency to your community. And I'm not going to go into governance in any particular detail because our whole approach is underwritten by governance, and I will leave that to the experts such as Tony when she does present. So, as I said, it's an approach and a framework for nation building. It's mapping out sort of short-term, mid-term, long-term, achievable, sustainable outcomes for groups. And I will talk a bit about this more. Our PPP is both adaptable and scalable, and I'll come back to that. And as I said, it's traditional owner clients are supported by QSNTS's interdisciplinary client management team. But as we started to develop the model, and as we started to have clients coming back to QSNTS asking for assistance, we realised that the current workloads of our teams is such that to provide this real support and facilitate the types of service delivery that the PPP envisages, that we needed to bring in somebody else. So I think, and I do apologise, I'm going to see, I might just speak to the slide because it's out of order. But what we've done recently, and I think it's just really in the last 4 months, we've put in place a client development unit. And so the client development unit will be primarily responsible for going out and working with TOs when TOs request our facilitation to do so. And there's a series of services that I'll go to. because our client management teams are incredibly busy anyway. We obviously all are faced with resourcing that limits us getting a development expert to allocate to each team. So yeah, so we're very lucky. We've just set up the client development unit, and we have with us a person called Joyce Gare, who's very talented. Her position title is development facilitator. She's an anthro, but also with postgrad qualifications and experience in development, and very fortunately, she's also a GIS practitioner, which that's a great bundle of skills. Supporting the CDU is Carmen Coombs-Delaney, who's a client relations officer, but is broadening her role. Carmen is also has obviously extensive community engagement experience through her role here for quite a number of years as a community relations officer, but also has an education background in community engagement. And I'm also not going to go into this in a great level of detail, but we are also working with AIGI and CAPER, partnering with AIGI and CAPER, which is providing a lot of, ideas and support for how our model's going and how it's working. So I do need to, I'm going to come back to that. So this is a mind web, and this is people, place, and partnership in practice. And here are the, and just let me know if you cannot see this properly. But the aim of people, place, partnership, and I said I wasn't going to go through too much detail, but governance underlies the entire application of the model, and in that we talk about governance in compliance, so development of PBEC policies and procedures, community governance, about building transparency and bringing a broader representative group in to map out how people want to travel down the road towards self-determination. And then there's the organisational governance, which is the implementation of your native title, your agreements and so forth. So there's a lot here, and these have come from a compilation of have been distilled from the aspirations that the groups have basically told us they would like, the things that they would like to do. I mean, there's clearly interlinks at various points. They don't necessarily have to be discrete products, but this model is designed to be both, and particularly, and I'll go on to the funding situation, but particularly where we have PBCs who have, very little funding, and that's a matter of working with the PBCs to set priorities, and in lieu of hopefully getting more significant levels of funding to really roll out the PPP properly. So, it may be that we just start with an aspiration and strategy workshop, and from there might be a particular desire to engage with local government so that you can work with local government on land care initiatives. It's that sort of thing. So this is the flexibility of the model, and it can be from there whatever suits your journey. Here we have the PPP, and I'll go back to, so phase one is where I was talking about the Bunthamara project. So that's where we have setting out what your plans are, what your visions are, and then we go to implementation, which is starting to roll them out and being able to meet with, for example, Bunthamara have these great strategic plans, great stakeholder engagement plans, but because of the limitations on funding, they haven't been able to meet in a place-based sense to start that rollout. That has now started for the first time the Buntamara people met with local government authorities. There's 3 local government authorities that overlap their determination, and have been able to sit at the table and start talking and implementing ILUAs that had not been implemented. And I'll come back to tracks in a minute. And then, so then we go to regional planning and regional implementation. This is the scalability aspect of the people-place partnership, is that, for example, sorry, I'll go back. Is that the, sorry, that just put me off. The regional planning, so for example, with Buntamara, they have neighbouring TOs who also have determinations. This is about when we're able to implement phase 1 and phase 2 with the groups that want it, then there's the scaling up as a unified voice to implement place-based change. And then, so then there's the implementation. So I've gone a bit off skew. So I'm mindful of the time. So what it comes down to, and sorry, before I go, I'm going to go back to our traditional owner system. That was a
You've
tool.
still got plenty of time, Felicity. Just, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Are you still seeing the slideshow?
Yeah, no, it's good. We're seeing the notes underneath, but that doesn't matter.
Okay, I might just take. I don't know what I've done, but I think if I go, I think I've actually turned the slideshow off.
Oh, that's it now. Yeah, we've got it now.
And I just wanted to really talk about, oh man, I really wanted to talk about, and it's a bit of an aside, but it's been a tool that we have developed at QSNTS that has really supported the development of the PPP. And I know there's quite a few people here that would have been have seen how it works. But briefly, tracks. Now this infographic is quite stretched, so it probably looks really odd. But what it is, it's the traditional owner knowledge system, and it was developed to hold information about agreements so that, and I mean, I know that when we did have groups that went away to get external legal representation and then came back to us, there was very little understanding of what agreements they had made, what benefits were outstanding, who were the parties to the agreement. So over time, we've been developing this bespoke traditional owner knowledge system, tracks. It holds, as it's currently functioning, it holds agreements, including payments that are due. It has the ability to bring out those outstanding or due payments, which can then by the PBC be put onto an invoice to send out to the whomever the proponent may be. So it sort of enables people to keep track of payments. It also includes room for benefits, other benefits, so the non-monetary, and they may be educational, employment, training, cultural awareness activities, the whole raft of things that are negotiated in agreements. So what tracks enabled us to do with the PPP, well, with the Buntamara project, was to bring all the agreements together, and they were like in bits and pieces everywhere, and there was some still in barristers' chambers, and there was some people in people's rooms, was to bring all the agreements together to not only look at what's outstanding as far as payment and other benefits, but also to identify the range of stakeholders that are on country. So that was an easy kind of way in which we could go, okay, well, this is who's doing what on your country and in which way. And that's how the Buntamara were able to to prioritise their engagements. I mean, just by example, there was an Indigenous land use agreement which had provision for the formation of a consultative committee between local government and Bunthmara, and the subject matter for the consultative committee was covered off on so many of the aspirations that the Bunthmara people had identified in their strategic plan. But if there's no will for the other parties to the agreement to enforce it, and Bunthmara or any other group aren't aware of the terms of their agreement because they've been negotiated in some fairly sort of narrow legal process, the proponents and other respondents might be quite happy to just let that slide. What this has enabled, even though it had been a lapse of time, was the kind of the leverage for starting that stakeholder engagement process at the local government area, level and in a place-based setting. And just by the by, with Tracks, we're actually working on Tracks to improve its functionality, and we have a whole list of things that we want our developer to work on, so that one day, and when we're in the rearview mirror, Tracks will be something that is well, it's a governance tool that will be a governance tool, not just a few agreements, but it will hold members lists, it'll be a resolution tracker, it will hold assets registers, it will hold a whole raft of information that's important, not just for the functioning of the PBC in a compliance sense, but provides a corporate memory for successive generations, and who can go back and see how decisions were made, why they were made, who are the stakeholders that you can engage with, who stick to their agreements, I suppose. Who might you not want to engage because they've never paid what was due? So that is a bit of an aside. But I think it's a really important system, and we're growing it on the basis of feedback from clients and our experience with clients. We have volunteer boards, often with little training in records management and the like. So it's our hope that Tracks will be of some value in the future. So I've gone there. So funding, I keep doing it, I apologise. Funding with 80 grand a year, there's not much you can do, as I said, other than hold meetings and do what the CATSI Act says you ought to do. It doesn't give much to kind of implement and leverage your native title rights. And if you can imagine the onus upon a traditional owner group having to apply each time they wanted to go through each phase of bringing, developing the activities or the products and implementing. I mean, it needs to be more seamless, and PBCs need to, if PBCs are able to develop long-term visions towards self-determination, then the funding needs to be there across the horizon to enable that. So, look, just without going into too much detail, QSNTS have been meeting with NIAA. I said to you before, I read out the objects of the IAS, and our view is very strongly that the PBP is aligned strongly with the IAS grants and some program streams in particular. And we're currently meeting with NIAA because we won't be able to deliver this wholesomely and properly without certainty of funding. So we did meet with NIAA the other day, and we showed them, I guess, we depicted the slide that you've got now. And these are all elements that we already had identified in our PPP the mind web that I showed you before. And we went through the 3 of the programs in particular: the jobs, land economy, culture and capability, and research and evaluation. And there was a direct alignment between the objects and the outcomes, the stated objects and outcomes of those programs under the IAS and our PPP. So we are currently appealing to the NIAA on that front. I mean, it's our view that what we're doing through the PPP is the implementation of a Commonwealth policy. So it can't be anything but attractive on that front. And look, I think that's about it. I think, as I said before, it's really also about place-based funding, place-based community engagement. And again, we would say with the PPP, particularly in the regional scalability, that would also align with the closing the gap. So I think, this is fairly new and it will be refined. And as we work with TOs, we will continue to improve our practice and our service delivery and capture sort of more broad aspirations. But until we have some clear idea of the funding levels, we can only deal with it on a individual grant basis. And I think we were told the turnaround just for one grant is about 3 months. So there's a lot of pause between actual implementation. So we will get back to you on that, and we hope to have some good news from the NIAA shortly. But that's it.
Thank you.